Hi, and welcome to AtlantaMusicCritic.com. My name is Laird. Today, AMC's William Ford will be talking with cellist Gabriel Martins. With American and Brazilian heritage, Martins grew up in Bloomington, Indiana. He began playing the cello when he was 5, studying with Susan Moses at the Indiana University String Academy. He went on to receive his Bachelor of Music as a presidential scholar at the USC Thornton School of Music with Ralph Kirshbaum. In his freshman year at USC, he won the school's concerto and Bach competitions. He received his Master of Music at the New England Conservatory of Music with Laurence Lesser. Martins now resides in South Carolina with his partner, violinist Geneva Lewis. In addition to performing, he also composes, arranges, and teaches. He plays a composite 1690 Francesco Ruggieri cello made in Cremona, and an 1880 François Nicolas Voirin bow made in Paris. Here is an excerpt from Williams' review of Martins' September 23, 2022 performance with the Omaha Symphony Orchestra. Next was Elgar's Cello Concerto, one of his last works and written in 1919. The soloist was Gabriel Martins, a 26-year-old cellist. Once Martins starts playing, something transforms him. He becomes his instrument and the music. He seems to disengage from us mere mortals to enter a rapturous world of his own. He swoons, he exhales, he sways, he is so at one with the music that he is as thrilling to watch as he is to listen to. He left no emotional stone unturned in his performance. Martins was called back twice by the audience. He deserved much more. Please join AMC's William Ford in conversation with cellist Gabriel Martins.
See, one of the things I try to do is understand a bit about how people got to be where they are, what they are, and so on. And as we chatted a bit before I got the cameras rolling, that you're from Bloomington, Indiana.
Yes.
Talk about what it was like in Bloomington growing up.
Well, my parents are both biologists, so they were on the faculty at Indiana University, which is basically what Bloomington is known for. It's a small college town. And that university happens to have one of the largest music schools in the world, the IU Jacob School of Music. So, as a young person, my parents wanted me to be involved in various different kinds of activities just to see what sort of sparked my interest: sports, arts, including music. So I started out with cello lessons there, and to be honest, it wasn't particularly a large passion of mine early on in my life, but as I grew older, and especially into my teenage years and so on, being surrounded by such an incredible musical community certainly inspired a certain side of myself, and I fell in love with the arts of the cello and the music and all of that. So I loved growing up in Bloomington, Indiana. It was a wonderful place for me to be, for sure.
How did you decide on the cello?
I didn't choose it. My mother chose it. She says that it was because the university program had specific hours designated for the cello group class and the violin group class, the piano group class, and the cello group class was the one that didn't conflict with the rest of our schedule. So that's what happened.
And how old were you when you actually started?
I was 5.
So you started out in group classes. Was it like Suzuki? Or?
It was Suzuki method. I mean, I had a private teacher. Susan Moses was my private teacher all the way through the end of high school. And we also had master classes, lots of chamber music, orchestra, all that sort of thing.
When did it become apparent to you or your teacher that you actually had an affinity for playing?
Well, I would say early on I was not particularly talented. I was not by any means at the top of the class, mainly because I didn't take it super seriously. I didn't practice a lot, was spending my time doing other things. But When I was 11, my teacher decided that she was going to send a few of her best students to an international cello competition overseas in Hungary. And she knew some people involved with the competition, so she was connected there. And I was interested in this competition because I guess I was a very competitive young child, was really into sports and things, and I didn't really know that music competitions existed like that. So I was interested to see what it was like. And I went there, I guess not really knowing the expectation for the level of excellence, the level of perfection that these people do. I mean, students were coming from all over the world, most of them practicing 3-4 hours every day. I was practicing maybe 30 minutes a day, maximum. And so I went there completely in over my head and obviously did not win any prize whatsoever. And as a competitive young boy, I was motivated by that loss to want to come back and prove myself that I could do just as good as any of those other students. So when I came back home from that competition, that's when I got to work. And I quit basketball, quit all the other activities basically, and just poured myself into music. And being at that university, I started going to all the concerts. This place, they offered probably 5 to 10 concerts every day. It was unbelievable. I mean, top graduate students, professors, visiting artists. So I would just go to everything that I could. Spent hours in the library studying the scores, practicing, going to all the master classes and everything. And then 4 years after that competition loss, they hosted the competition again. And so I said, this is it, I'm going to go back. And I went back, and that time I won the first prize. So it was a sort of full circle story. And so that, to answer your question, that was the start of my interest, my engagement in music.
The original competition, you were how old?
11.
11. And you went back when you were 15
Yes.
and won first prize.
Yes.
Wonderful. And as I read in your biography, you've won many competitions subsequent to that.
Yes.
Music is full of competitions, apparently.
Yes.
When you made the comment that you didn't know there were such things, my guess is most people don't know
Yeah.
that there are many, many.
Right.
And that in some ways, as a young artist, it seems that's the way you have to be able to establish a reputation.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the only way, but it's probably the most common way. I've never been the person to just go into the competition and win immediately. This example of when I lost the first time and came back and won the second time has been actually quite reoccurring in my life. Most of the competitions I've won, I did not get first prize the first time I went. So it's taken a lot of effort and persistence, but that's sort of been my route.
It seems those competitions are a motivator for you to do better.
They were, yes. I mean, I don't really do these competitions anymore, but yes, they were certainly a motivator in my student years.
And after graduating from high school, you went to...
I went to the University of Southern California.
And after USC?
I went to New England Conservatory for graduate school.
What years was that?
Well, I did my master's there from 2019 to 2021.
So you're freshly minted.
Yes.
All right. Have you made the decision that you're going to pursue a solo career?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Being a solo artist it's a big dream for a lot of us as young instrumentalists. I wouldn't say it is for everybody, but it's in many ways seen as the pinnacle of, if you work really, really hard and you're really lucky, and you have the right opportunities and so on, that would be like the dream. I, like many people, had that dream growing up, but I didn't think, to be honest, I didn't think it would really happen. But I entered these competitions and worked my hardest, tried my best, and one thing led to the next, and I signed my first management contract in 2020, and that led to more things, more debuts, led to another management contract earlier this year. So that's sort of the way the path has led for me, and now I'm doing what, as a young boy, really was my dream. I will say that it comes with a lot of unexpected challenges and a lot of things that I never really thought about before, but it is a real, true privilege to be doing what I'm doing.
What are some of the challenges that were unexpected?
Well, to be traveling all the time, to be on the road constantly, to play in front of thousands of people, to get on stage and do your thing, express yourself in front of thousands of people night after night. It's a very unnatural act in a way, just doing that. And it comes with a lot of pressure in a way and a lot of anxiety. And you have to find your ways to be able to deal with that, to be at peace with it. The other thing is about the art itself, the music itself. It's hard to tell sometimes whether you're really doing the right thing or not in the music that you play. Because when we're young and students, we have so many teachers. People are constantly giving us feedback, constantly giving us opinions, what we did right, what we did wrong. But when you become a professional artist and you're on stage, I mean, there are critics and there's the audience that applauds for you and so on, but you don't have this same kind of feedback. So you have to somehow find a way to believe in yourself constantly, because if you don't have that confidence, there's no way you'll be able to get on stage and do it successfully. So yeah, these are some of the challenges, I would say.
Have you ever performed in front of an audience that responded poorly to you?
I wouldn't say poorly. No, I mean, there are definitely been times when I was perhaps surprised by the lack of enthusiasm, but I still wouldn't say poorly.
As you look back, do you think that was merited?
That's the challenge, right? That's what's hard for me to tell. Even to this day, I couldn't tell you yes or no strictly. I mean, I would like to think that I played well, and for whatever reason on that day it didn't connect, because I always do give my all. Every night I give my all, but it's hard to say. That's a really hard question.
And of course, from a listener's point of view, there are lots of things that can influence a response to music.
Yep.
Uncomfortable seats, temperatures too high, temperatures too low,
Of course.
piece that was before, the piece that was after. So lots of variables in there that make it difficult to know
Absolutely.
exactly.
Actually,
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And your schedule now, is that built by your artistic management?
yes,
So you don't have to do any of that yourself?
that's correct.
The reason I ask is I've interviewed a lot of musicians who put it together themselves, so it seems like quite a chore,
Yes, absolutely.
particularly with regard to the travel arrangements and so on.
Yeah.
How busy are you?
This season I play, I would say on average 5 concerts a month, something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
In different cities? Would that,
Well,
would that equate
sometimes.
to 5 cities?
Not always, because for example here I'm playing 2 nights.
2 nights, right.
Most orchestras you play more than 9.
Right. What effect, if any, did the pandemic have on your plans and your career and so on?
One of the major competitions that I was fortunate to win the first prize was the Sphinx competition, and that I won in February of 2020, right before the pandemic. And the result of winning that competition is typically a number of very high-profile concerto performances, orchestras all over the country, really top-level orchestras. And because of the pandemic, this did not happen for me. However, at that time, I was in this attitude of sort of entering everything that I could, doing all the auditions I could, all the competitions I could. And so there was another one that happened very shortly after that with Concert Artists Guild. And the prize for that is a real professional young artist management contract. So if you win that competition, you're on a contract with them that they are to find engagements for you for a number of years. And that way, as the pandemic started easing up, as we started having more and more concerts, they were able to find those engagements for me and fill out my schedule.
You listen to music yourself?
Yes.
What do you listen to?
I listen to a number of things. And if it's just for downtime, for free time, usually not classical music. Because classical music for me it's very serious, but it's associated with my work. So I find for my own well-being, I have to balance things out often, just to have the right kind of release from that, because what I do in my music is so intense always. So I listen to usually jazz and various number of lighter things, sometimes country.
Do you have any favorite groups that you turn to that you want to listen to?
Many. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert in these things, but some of the people I love to listen to are Miles Davis, Nora Jones, Nina Simone.
Do you have cello heroes?
Yes, of course.
Who are they? I know you can't have an exhaustive list, and I know if you name five will be upset you didn't name
That's
them.
right.
But, I mean, aside from Yo-Yo Ma, who is not only a talented musician, but he fills seats in concert halls, which
Yeah.
is an important function.
Yeah.
Do you have others?
Yeah, I mean, for a cellist, well, honestly, I really have to name my first teacher, Susan Moses. This woman I owe everything to in my love for the music and my career and my technique, my ability to play music. I owe everything to her. And she was a woman who has quite an incredible lineage, actually, as a cellist. So her teachers were, in this order, Janos Starker, Aldo Pariso, and Gregor Piatigorsky. So she passed on this real tradition for cello playing and for the beautiful romantic side of music to me, and the love for that, the appreciation for that. So for me, everything comes from her. Then, of course, the legends, Pablo Casals and Rostropovich, I have to say, for me, are the cello giants. Those are the two heroes, two very different artists, but in our history for the instrument, in Rostropovich's case, for the repertoire that we have for the instrument, these are two people that I will always see as having set the foundation for what we do.
When you do listen to classical music, are there, other than cello performances, is there a composer or two or three that you're particularly drawn to?
By far, my favorite composer is Johann Sebastian Bach, by far. But other than him, I love many composers. Chopin, Schumann, Schubert, Mozart, many composers and instrumentalists. I mean, I go through phases in my life. I find different people that really inspire me for one reason or another at that time. And yeah, so I like to try and appreciate what everybody has to offer, and not just turn away from something because I don't like one thing about it, but I always try to find what is special there.
It's interesting because a lot of people don't like to answer those kinds of questions, in part for the same reason. And then there's the stock answer of, well, it's whoever I'm playing. Well, that, not really. I get your point, but not really. Any contemporary composers? I mean, people post 1950, for example, that stick out in your mind. For you?
Luchslavsky, for me, is a major talent and great artist. I love the music of some of the contemporary minimalist composers. Philip Glass, I love his music. Arvo Pärt. There are many. As I said before, I try to appreciate all the different types of music.
Do you attend concerts now?
Not so much, to be honest. I mean, my partner's a great violinist, so I attend her concerts whenever I can. Outside of that, I don't have that much opportunity, to be honest, because I don't live in a big city. I live outside of Charleston, South Carolina. So, I mean, there is music there, but it's not like the New York City type of scene, you know. And when I'm traveling, I'm usually busy doing my own thing. So, I attended tons and tons of concerts throughout my student years. I consider that a hugely formative part of my musicianship, just as much as my lessons, even, I would say. But yeah, not so much.
Right. So you're playing Elgar
Yes.
this week.
Yes.
Is that like when your management is putting you forward?
Mm-hmm.
They provide local orchestras with a list of your repertoire? Or is it like a bidding? The Omaha Symphony says, gee, we want to do Elgar this year, and I got one. How does that work?
I don't know the full extent of how it works, but I think it depends on the specific orchestra, specific place. I've played with orchestras before where they book me and then they ask, what do you want to play? Choice is yours.
Sure.
But most commonly, I do have a list of my repertoire, and in addition to that, each season I have a list of the concertos that I'm sort of focusing on that year, and that I'm playing multiple times that year. And so then the orchestras will see that list, and then I presume they will speak with the conductor, and they will come up with what they feel fits the program.
Are there particular concertos you're kind of focusing on this year?
Yes, this year it's the Elgar. I'm playing Elgar more than anything. I'm doing Shostakovich #1 a lot, and then actually the Brahms double concerto for violin and cello. I'm doing quite a bit this year. So.
Great piece of music. When you're doing the double concerto, it's up to the management, artistic management, or the symphonies to pair up soloists. Is that how that works?
Also, it depends on the situation. In my situation, the violinist is my partner, Geneva Lewis, and we used to share the same manager. So that manager would pitch us to orchestras for this piece.
Mm-hmm.
And also recital series for dual recitals. It does happen the way you mentioned as well, where orchestras will find two different artists they think will work together well, or, it can happen any number.
Do you and your partner, hey, instead of watching TV tonight, let's play something? Does that ever happen? Or is that movies?
Usually movies. But I would say if one of us were a pianist, this would probably happen a lot more. But seeing as we're violinists and cellists, we don't have a whole lot of music to explore. Mm-hmm. In a lot of our duo recitals, I've actually been arranging music for us to do, to try and sort of expand the repertoire.
Like what?
The one we've been doing a lot recently is 5 Preludes for Guitar by Villalobos. So I arranged this for violin and cello.
Have you ever thought of composing?
I do compose, yes.
You do compose.
Yeah.
Talk about that a bit.
First and foremost, cellist, performer. But composing is a thing that I do only when I feel the inspiration has really come to me in a natural way. And for one reason or another, I feel I just have a need to get this out at this moment. So I don't compose a lot. I have, at this point, only 3 completed works. And those were all written in that sort of way.
Are they solo pieces?
The first one is solo piano, and the second and the third are solo cello.
Is that something you think you want to pursue more, or are you happy to have it on when your muse speaks basis?
For the time being, I'm happy to do it that way because the cello, it takes a lot of work to prepare the repertoire that I have to play, and that keeps me pretty busy, and things are continuing to get more busy, so I think it will have to remain that way for the time. I find it very hard to sit down and write without a real inspiration or a real need to. If I just sit down and try to make something happen, it doesn't feel right to me. So for the time being, I'm happy with it that way.
I assume you're trying to expand your repertoire all the time.
Yes.
And by that, does that mean actually having, I know it means having facility with the piece, obviously, but like committing it to memory and so on. Is that what you try to do to expand it?
For cello, we don't have an enormous repertoire. It's not like it would be for a pianist, for instance.
Right.
So at this point, I learned all of the major works written for cello. So, of course, there are lesser known works and also contemporary works that I haven't yet explored, and I'm sure will explore when that time comes. But in my career, for my purposes, 99% of the time, if I'm engaged to play a concert, it's going to be one of those standard works. The expansion of the repertoire it's hard to do it without a reason to do it. If you have a performance lined up, you can learn anything for that reason, that you'll have the reason, the will to do it. But otherwise, it's hard to just sit in a room and what does it even mean? Just get it in your fingers, I guess, but
Sure.
or as you said, in your memory.
Sure. Do you practice while you're on the road?
Yes.
So, specifically here in Omaha, would you come to the Holland Center to practice, or do you practice in the hotel room, which I would assume drives everybody crazy?
A little bit of both. I will come early to rehearsals or concerts here and to warm up, and then I do a little bit of practice in the hotel.
When when the room is booked,
Mm-hmm.
do you give advance notice that you might be playing the cello in your room?
You mean the hotel room?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, there are ways to minimize it. I've actually, in my whole life, I've never had one complaint from practicing in a hotel room. So if you think like the walls might be thin or something, and then you can do things like sometimes put a towel underneath the door outside, or just play sort of quietly if you think it's. And of course, I never practice late at night or anything.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabriel and William, for the fascinating and frank conversation. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. Become a patron at www.patreon.com/AtlantaMusicCritic. This interview was recorded at Omaha's Holland Performing Arts Center on September 22, 2022. Thanks to Omaha Symphony staff Daniela Fokovinsky and Josh Tagg for making this interview possible. If you have a suggestion for someone you would like to see interviewed, leave your suggestion in the comments below. This is Laird. See you next time at www.atlantamusiccritic.com.